So we're recording. Hello,
Hello,
Laura.
Leonora. Ciao, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much on this May 10th, 2020 on a Sunday for showing up and doing this little coffee interview.
It's great. It's a great opportunity. Thank you.
So everyone, this is a little video that Laura and I thought we would put together because, well, she's a teacher. So Laura's a primary school teacher in Milan, in Italy, and she's also a mother of two, Lorenzo and Agata, who are 11 and 13, and she teaches primary 9 and 10-year-olds, so third grade, fourth grade. And she also is an editor for children's educational books at Pearson. I've known Laura for many years now, more than 16.
Yes,
And it's been a long time. Yeah, and we thought we'd put this together because there's a lot of articles around about how to do homeschooling and all the worries of the parents, and how a lot of complaints from teachers or from parents about teachers or schooling and not schooling. And I just thought we'd create some kind of image of what's possible, what can be done, what we've learned, what to worry about really, and what to just let go of, and I'll be asking you questions as a mom as well as from a teacher's perspective. Does that work?
Great, because we really feel better when we can talk about that. So it's also good for me to have the chance of reflecting on this many roles and many ways of living this such an unexpected period in our lives, as a mom, as a wife, as a teacher. So great, thank you.
No, you're welcome. So I guess we should start reminding people that Milan is like one of the most hit cities in Italy, but also in the whole of Europe, pretty much.
Yes, we had this complete lockdown, shutdown from, well, actually since Carnival holidays, which dates back to the end of February. So before the lockdown for everybody, schools closed down from the beginning of March.
Right.
So actually, I was thinking with my kids that they haven't seen any place except the garden for more than 2 months now.
Right.
It's been quite a long way, but I can see, I asked them before I was here with you, before this meeting, actually I asked them to tell me one good thing and one bad thing about this period. The bad thing, what they suffer most, they say, is not to be able to embrace grandparents. It's actually the thing they really regret not being able to do now, even now that we can actually meet grandparents. We are very, very careful because my dad is really suffering from lung pathology, so we have to be very careful. Both of them said this was the idea of not being able to have a physical contact with friends and relatives is what they suffer most. But for other respects, I found them really, really at ease, actually, in this new balance they found. They actually started playing together more than they did before. They quarrel, they still quarrel a lot, but a bit less. Their days are made of compromises and favors, in order to that each of them has a moment he likes or she likes. So they are learning a lot between them as well.
That's great. Thanks for sharing also their perspective, because it's important. And I know not everybody will have been that lucky, but it's good to hear that they adapt.
They adapt.
There are things that they find difficult, but they are very adaptive.
Yes, I have also another perspective I want to share with you, Eleonora, and the people that you are going to meet with your video. As a teacher, I was forced by necessity to actually break into other families' lives and homes. And at the beginning, I found this a bit. I found myself in an uneasy situation because I thought, okay, we are actually invading their lives. We can't think of reproducing what was going on at school in their families, because families are disorientated. They are in a very difficult and delicate moment, and but we had to do it. So we decided how to do it, and having a video, having a platform and technologies to help us actually made me think that while using them, that it was not actually so bad, even if absolutely not ideal. I remind you that I work in a school that has a special project where we believe the project is built around the idea of not having a school bag. So everything is at school. You work with objects, with nature, with what we share as groups. We haven't got desks. We have square tables where kids sit 6 to 8 around. We haven't got, there is not the teacher's desk. The teacher is always going around. So it was a radical change from that situation to video video teaching. But it was also an opportunity because I could see what was going on in other families, in my kids' families, in my pupils' families, and it was interesting to understand a bit better of their home environment. And this gave us, me and my colleagues, new ideas of how to be milder in our teaching to them through this media. An example, I could see families confined to their smart working in different rooms. They would meet at lunch and dinner every day, and lunch and dinner was the occasion to cook with their kids. So we decided that the kitchen could be a place for research for them. So we tried new ideas to help them do research, or even do scientific research, but also texts and even poetry around when they are in the kitchen with their parents. So this window I had in their lives at home gave me the opportunity to find new creative ideas, to be there without being an invasor. So this is one good thing.
And I think what's beautiful, I think some schools, especially Nordic countries, they already operate not so much on a subject by subject area, but on day-to-day things where you bring everything together. So, you know, a visit to the supermarket is all about weight and measurements, but it's also about economics and all sorts of other things, decision making. So I guess that it sounds like your creative solutions were also ways of not creating extra work for the parents as much as possible, because it is tough.
It is tough. Actually, I must admit that I had a phone call to each single parent in my classes, and I can say that even if my creative ideas or my colleagues' creative ideas try to make it easier, I found many parents very, very tired and also worried about what's going on in the future. Actually, I mean, at the moment, we don't have an idea of how September will be for us and for schools reopening. We are sure that school needs a very, very strategic thinking about how we are gonna open back schools and how we're gonna teach kids, because it's gonna be a long process. But I could perceive that families were in the middle of a very difficult moment. More than kids, actually, kids were comfortable because they adapt, and also because for many of them it was the first time in their lives that they spend so much time with parents together.
Right, there's a lot
So
of
for them, it's like asking, saying to a kid, okay, I'm sorry, I have to close you down, to close you into a candy shop. I'm sorry for you. Okay, but they are in a candy shop. So before they get tired, they have so much to do.
right.
And being at home with their parents, maybe baking pizza, maybe playing a bit in garden at coffee time when their parents can uh, get away from the computer for a while. It's invaluable for
Right.
them.
Yeah. And a lot of what you're describing is sort of the best case scenario. You know, I consider myself fortunate that I'm self-employed. You know, that my husband wasn't at risk at work, and so I was able to drop a lot of my, you know, own work to um, support Adrian because he's 9. And you know that our school did a great job with very quickly getting on board of like Microsoft Teams and doing little videos and putting the, but you know, you still have to be there to kind of download the stuff, make sure he's understanding, make sure he's not staying extra to chat too long, isn't creating a mess, is doing the actual work. So it's not a, so that's a kind of ideal case scenario. I would say it's not ideal for anyone to be locked down, but it's a scenario where you have a choice, right?
Yes,
So
there
tell me
are.
a little bit. You must have also witnessed some challenging situations, just so we acknowledge those people who don't find, you know, I
Yeah,
might be feeling guilty or might be feeling worried about not having been able to provide that for their kids.
or to reach them. Yeah, um, we have obviously we couldn't reach everybody. I mean, we succeeded to reach everybody in our school. In our big school, there is a very very big comprehensive institution, and we were successful in reaching them from a technological point of view, because school lended laptop computers to those who hadn't got the technologies to stay in touch with us. But sometimes you find families that they are not home, or if they are home, they have so much to think about. Maybe they have problems, or too much work, or little kids, even babies, to look after, and they can't care for their
Older
their
one,
yes,
yeah.
the other kids, to maybe to be on time at our meetings, or maybe to deliver their texts or homework. So what we did is to be just to be in touch, and we started very cautiously, because I think it's like everything we do is like um, knocking at someone else's door. Even if they are my students, I can't just open the door and get in and feel that I have how can I say,
My time, yeah.
yeah, it's my time. I can't do that. I can do that at school when I meet kids in school, but not in their families, not in their houses, not at home. So what we did is maybe a phone call. We started out with a phone call to those families and ask how it was going, what could we do. And sometimes just sometimes even just with that phone call, things went better. And when parents felt they were listened to, they could say what they felt and how they were in distress, and that we were listening with a true curiosity, with a sincere curiosity, then the next time the kid was on time at the appointment, it was on time for the lesson.
What you're speaking to, Laura, is a real leadership best practice. It's just connecting to people where they are, letting them feel seen and heard, because well, you are in isolation when you're in lockdown, right?
Absolutely.
And if you're not coping with everything, you're probably just wondering, how are the teachers perceiving your child and yourself, and good parent, bad parent, my kid is falling back, whatever. So just simply having that soft touch and connection is one of the key things that you could, like, that we're sharing now, that is saying it's important to not pretend that it's all business as usual but on video, right? That you need a different kind of relationship between parents and teachers.
What you were saying was reminding me also that one thing that I think relieved these parents was when we tried to shift the focus that they had about being behind, maybe in the curricular work, that so with homework and lessons maybe their kids could have lost. Once you make clear that it's 3 months we lost, okay, you can be a little behind, but what maybe they learned, we don't even know, they have learned competencies, and maybe they have cultivated talents and interests, and this is something we gain, and that maybe we wouldn't have even seen in another situation where the week was fully booked with sports and second languages courses and many other things.
And I'm just thinking of, sorry to break the flow, I'm just thinking of those kids whose parents were not able to be present as much, or who were literally having to go out because they were primary service providers, and the kids had to stay at home alone even at a young age. What I'm seeing from my child, who didn't have to stay alone, but because we had to shift our dynamics as well, otherwise I couldn't work, was, I'm guessing a lot of them are learning independence.
Absolutely, yes.
How to handle their time, badly, well, but like you're a whole day somewhere where nobody's pushing you to do anything. So how do you keep yourself busy? How do you look after yourself? How do you stay out of trouble? And probably, I'm guessing, and if parents are watching this, please give your perspectives, because we might be limited in our views from our experiences. This concept of, okay, you watch Netflix all day and now you can't sleep, so you've learned something. Normally my parenting method would be, no way, screen time more than 45 minutes, that stops. Okay, well, just class is 3.5 hours now. So what do you do then? You just block them out from any TV or anything else? You can't. So suddenly you're having to let go of your parameters as teachers, in terms of having a hold of the class, everybody being present, everybody being there in time and doing their stuff. As parents, we're having to leave all our plans pretty much. It's like, forget it. And as kids, they're I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing that you might have had experiences, maybe not in your school. It sounds like, although yours is a state school, you had some good support, which is amazing to hear. But for example, our neighbor, their school is public, and there was no online support, so they got given books and books and exercises, which means the parents have to sit down and do it with them, right? Because how else do you learn?
Other than you are at university, you need somebody to to schedule
right?
you a bit, or to help you interpret.
Yeah, and you were telling me before we started about also parents who have challenges with the languages.
Absolutely. We
Cultural
have
challenges.
yes, what you were saying about difficulties and challenges we had and we still have, and of course we have non-native Italians in my class, so they have parents at home that they have parents at home that they don't speak a good Italian, so they can't even support them. Sometimes even trying to support them, they are not able to understand the text of a problem, for example, or of the math, or of a maths problem. So they have to translate it into another language to try and understand it in Italian. Very, very difficult. But again, these challenges were the occasion to start thinking about what resources did we have, and some of the resources were parents themselves, other parents. So if my class is a group, is a team, is not just a group put together yesterday, but we are trying to build a team together from year one. I thought that maybe in this situation some parents could do the same. Parents are usually somewhere else, everybody in their business life, completely absorbed. But in this situation, we maybe could rely on some of them, and this is what happened. Once some parents had the how can I say, they felt free to explain their feelings and their worries and their weaknesses. We also found some parents who said, I can help. Who said, maybe I can put together my kid with your kid, and with a WhatsApp phone call, we can video call, we can maybe put them together to do their homework. So they spend a whole hour together doing their homework, doing their research. We even had a group of parents who did a special aperitif time. I don't know how you say that, but an aperitif time, which is very common in Milano, you know. Nobody wants to miss their aperitif. And they did an aperitif on Skype, talking about their kids, how they would see their kids, what was going on, how they could relate together to help the class go on as a group. Because one of the worries was, my kid is missing his friends, some especially
Only children.
lonely children. They hadn't got anybody to play with. Okay, we can't just phone friends, is okay, but we tried to find some other ways. So what happened is, some kids were put together, again, as I said, to do some research, to even to do some English together. I asked, for example, my kids to send a spelling challenge to another one. They could choose who they wanted, and the person who received the spelling game should report the sentence he or she heard, and then he had to do the same with the kid who sent it. So everybody was in some way, with little bits. We can't do that much, but even a little surprise like this can make your day.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is that although it's important and it's usually plugged into programs, their well-being, that's why you do sports, that's why they do games, that's why they have rest time. The concept of their mental well-being suddenly became different, more complex, and more resourceful.
Yeah, I think some of them even made extraordinary evolutions, and some even bloomed. I must admit that some kids bloomed at home. Maybe they were the kids who suffered most from
social anxiety or something like
yes, they felt the pressure when they had to speak among their schoolmates, or maybe they felt a bit different for some reason that even we don't know maybe. But now with the filter of technologies, some of them felt brave enough to read a text they invented, they created a story. Some of them showed us their pets. Some of them even showed us what they cooked. So I think these are little bits of life that need to be chosen and not just left in a corner. We need to build on those
Right.
special moments.
It sounds like they were able to bring in things that matter to them as part of the curriculum, as opposed to being imposed like on what the topic is of the day. I noticed that with my son too. He's been doing presentations on dinosaurs, which isn't part of the curriculum, but because they encourage them to research and ask questions and present to each other.
Yeah.
And you know, we come all proud saying, "Oh yeah, my friend Leo, he wants to do one on sharks now," and the teacher's letting them, right?
Yeah.
And so he suddenly become really excited about presenting, which at that age
Exactly.
they get really self-conscious. And so I guess conscious of the time, and I know we'll do some more calls if you're okay with that, Laura, because there's so much to cover. And you've written articles as well that are interesting to at least summarize in English.
I
But
did.
I wanted to ask you here, what are the key things that you've learned? And also, what advice could you give to both parents and teachers right now who are really worried for the rest of the summer and come September? I know that's a lot of questions at once, sorry.
Well, well, I can start with what I learned. I try to ask myself, what have I learned? Flexibility, patience. Also, the idea of not presuming that I am the manager of the time of my kids and of my students, and that sometimes you have to let go, and that the time that they seem to lose, it's not time that is wasted, because they learn from wandering around, skipping in the garden, maybe making a mess in the kitchen, and I tried to limit myself, and I try to not stop them, and I found that they gave me really, 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 really good surprises. And I think both my students and my kids have made big steps. I would say, doesn't matter if it's not multiplication, or they don't know everything about the history chapter, but they are learning a lot. I can see they are learning a lot, even in an emotional from an emotional point of view. They are in touch with us. They can spot our worries, our feelings, our also when we are very busy. They are so cooperative, and they are so understanding. I think this is something we can't just put in a corner as something marginal. I think this is the core, or what we are seeking as educators.
That's beautiful, Laura. What I'm hearing is like, even if the academic part might have suffered in some cases, they are all learning about anxiety and how to handle it, how to handle being in limited freedom, and how to be creative in it. And even in the most extreme cases, I think, especially for those parents who are anxious, and that anxiety is probably projected on kids, right? Like, is the likelihood, for example, in September that you go over stuff all over again? Is that something that you see as part of the plan for educators in general? I mean, worldwide, I'm guessing. I don't know if like Pearson is talking about it, or, but a lot of schools are not opening until September. Some are opening in France and Switzerland, but I don't think they're going to be catching up in 2 weeks worth, you know? And
No,
there's
of
the
course.
difficulty of the whole, in France they've opened, but they can only have a certain amount of kids. They're
And on a
disinfect.
voluntary basis, so only parents who feel safe or that
Well, they
feel
have
they
to.
have no chance to yes
Right.
to do something else, they send them to school. So I know it's really a hectic situation.
Messy, yeah.
Okay, Italian schools are not opening until September, and we still don't know how we are going to open. So it is something we are dealing with these days. But at the same time, I feel that in a moment where families are worried and uncertain about the future, as a school, as educators, um, transfer any we can't transfer more anxiety to these kids. We
No,
have to stick to what is possible now. I think there is so much we can do. Imagine this happened 20 years ago.
no internet.
we,
Right.
we are already doing a lot. And these wonders of technologies are to be used not just for lessons, but to keep in touch, to read stories,
Right.
to relate people as much as possible. We have to do
Brilliant.
what we can, and then we have to take
I
a
go.
step
Yeah.
back
I'm
into.
thinking also of those parents whose kids had exams at the end of the year, you know, seniors in school or whatever, who don't know how it's going to be. But I think in general, because this is a global pandemic, it's not like an individual family's problem.
Yeah.
I think generally every education, whether it's a university or schools that, you know, even if the kid was on the border or whatever, I think they're all going to understand.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Uh, I actually was so lucky to assist to the graduation of a of a girl in Università Bicocca, the University of Milan, and it was one of the first online graduations. It was really interesting to see. Uh, the understanding that you could perceive from the professors to these guys and girls. They were really, how can I say, a bit nervous about their their discourse uh, delivered online, but it was really everything was more relaxed. Everything, the professors were really understanding, and I could feel a very good deal of cooperation.
compassion,
And
sounds like, yeah.
yeah.
So
And I
just to
mean,
summarize some of the things you said, Laura, you know, partly it's being able to open up differently within the family and as an educator within the family to the parents. And as a parent to be able to sort of let go of some of the rules and be able to chat to the teachers of your needs. So connecting from a needs perspective
yes.
um, has
And
been an important tool that you've used in a way or way of being. You've reached out to parents or parents have reached out to each other, and this is good. This is best practice that I think, you know, in my school, nobody's ever said like, oh, I'll sit down and do, but then we've had the teachers being present, right? Because the parents put a lot of pressure, but mine is a private school. Yours is a state school, so there was a lot of pressure saying we've paid, so you do this. It was almost an attitude of if we're working, you should be looking after the kids, which is interesting. But parents have gotten together however they can. They've been able to include kids whose parents are not so present or can't help, and that's beautiful. So that's another best practice. And you mentioned that this included at some point kids with special needs, so including at least one kid who's with difficulties in the group, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And also, what I want to add is saying that we need to work a lot on the emotional side and on the needs, on the first and more urgent needs, doesn't mean that we don't have to do as much as we can on a curricular point of view. We
Right.
are doing a lot on that side, but as well, but we have to do it just in a different way. We can't just deliver worksheets. It's not. It's without purpose. I think it is something they would accept as bureaucracy. While if you reach them, as you were saying about the research, the dinosaurs research, it is something that you have uh, to deliver through their own curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Once the curiosity is open, is ready to to work,
Yeah.
then you can do quite a lot, and you realize they are really gaining in autonomies.
And this is something I would love teachers and parents to hear, especially for those who go to schools that are so obedience centric, because it sounds like your school and my school are very child centric, as in the rhythm of the child, the well-being of the child. It's not so you come here, we have the curriculum, you follow the academia, and you stay in the stream, right? Which is the case for a lot of French state schools, for sure, Swiss schools, but also Italian old-fashioned schools, right?
Absolutely.
If you're out of the thing, I don't have the time or the capacity to look after you. So there's something there for these schools that are still in that kind of old paradigm of you come in, you sit down, you learn, and you leave. About how do we learn together and how do we support each other, even if they're, even if we're in a classroom, like what makes kids flourish, and taking the positive, like you've noticed, not just focusing perhaps if the academia is falling back, if it has to, because for some it hasn't, huh?
Yeah.
But there's a worry for others. And so, but to know that even in that time, they're still learning something that
Yes.
is useful for life.
Absolutely.
Right?
And some of these things they are learning or they need to learn are things that then intertwine with school as well. For example, I was thinking now that you were speaking about a kid that he has a problem with dealing with time, and then because once the structure of the day has been lost because it was school
Right.
centered, now his day is completely it's a sort of how can I say, a big flow, but he doesn't know when it's time for breakfast or it's time for video games, and then after a few hours, oh, maybe there is some homework to do. There we can help the family to schedule maybe a bit, to try to find the times and the breaks and the times that are good for all the family.
Yeah. And also
uh,
the appropriate amount of lessons. I've had people have said, oh, well, we were online, but we were pretending as if we were in school. So the kids had six classes a day, which is way too much, right? So
oh,
that flexibility you were talking about earlier,
abs-
that's another pointer towards like what's important. I know my kids have had, our kid has had a lot of each language and then maths. There's a lot of maths. So they've let go of the Chinese and all the other stuff,
yeah.
also because some teachers lost their positions. So
Oh, oh,
yeah,
what a pity. I'm sorry.
so
Yeah.
yeah, but this is at least a first line chat, and what I'd like you just to mention, for like maybe we do another couple of videos if you have the time and the patience,
Absolutely.
just to tell us the articles you've written, what they were about, and say a little bit so that if people are interested, I can like post it to them. Yeah.
Okay, the articles I wrote are usually for a newsletter that comes from Pearson to primary school teachers. So the focus is on teachers. And the first one, I was asked to reflect on phase one, when it was complete lockdown, and how to deal with this so unexpected moment. So in the first contribution, I would call it, I called it school at 1 meter distance, which my idea was to deliver the concept of being propositive, trying to be there but not invading families, always being um, giving opportunities and never orders to families in situations, because we haven't got I don't think we have the we don't have the how can I say, il diritto
Right.
the right to do it, to reorganize a school as if we were in school.
Right.
So this was the main thing. The second article was about this phase 2, but I again I changed the name to this phase 2 because there is no phase 2 at this point of our lockdown. Actually, we are opening up some shops and supermarkets and other activities, but schools are still shut down, and we have no perspective for now until September. So
phase 2 is what you're referring to as the coronavirus phase 2, not a school phase 2, as in
exactly
everybody's
in this
gone,
case,
some people start coming
yes.
back. Right.
And yes, and talking about school, I would say we have no phase 2, but we have the chance of building on what happened in phase 1, and maybe restart with a more how can I say, with more resources, inner resources, and also resources that we can put together between us, among all the people that has experienced the situation, also for a future where maybe we will have to have some to keep some cautions for a long time. So starting from what happened, we can generate a new consciousness, a new way of also living, new limits maybe, and new unexpected moments, but with a different, with less fear and with a different
and given the relationship you've built with the kids now and with the parents, you can't go back now. So next year when they start again, there will be more intimacy and there will be more compassion in there. You're not going to suddenly start taking it out. So that's a beautiful thing that you can take with you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the thing I really don't want to lose, and I'm sure I won't, because now that with families we have in a way we have opened new corridors, we have opened a more frank dialogue, a more lighter, even a lighter dialogue. It's not like meeting, I have this meeting with a teacher, and but we are really more relaxed in a way of talking about what's going on. I hope this leads to a good way of cooperation, and also frank dialogue even in the next future.
Yeah, and it sounds also of integration of those kids who are a little bit more difficult, that it doesn't just become a job of their own parents or you as a teacher, but as of the team that you mentioned, the class being a team that includes the parents. So
this is something extraordinary parents were able to do, and I must say it's a good thing we have a rappresentante in each class. Yes, they have a sort of a parent then that is chosen to speak out for the whole class, and this role is really crucial because they really detect sometimes if there is something that maybe we teachers don't know, we don't have a chance to know. They maybe know, and they can transfer it. They can help us apply that knowledge to a better meeting to special needs or to urgencies or to any need that should come out.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much. I think this has been precious. And actually, I talked about splitting it, but I don't think I will. I'll keep it to an hour and I'll put a good description. And I think something that would be great to talk about is also the teacher's self-care and the parent's self-care during.
Wow, that's another chapter, I would say.
It is, which is why we won't cover it today, but I think it's important. And I just want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Leonora. It was great to meet you, even if at a distance.
Right.
And thanks. It's a pleasure.
Hopefully next time then, yeah.
Thank you, Leonora.
A presto, Laura.
Ciao.